The history of Ernest Rutherford.
Without Rutherford, there would be no nuclear physics. One could say he is the father of nuclear physics.
Rutherford was born on August of 1871 in a small village in New Zealand. He had received a scholarship to study at Canterbury College. It was here, for the very first time, that we saw Rutherford's curiosity in research. While studying, he had made his very own version of the radio receiver, and this invention gave him the fame to get into the prestigious Cavendish Laboratory at the University of Cambridge. It was here at the University of Cambridge that Rutherford had met another brilliant thinker, J.J. Thomson. With the help of J.J., Rutherford had created technology which was able to detect radio waves that were a mile apart. J.J. Thomson was sort of a mentor to Rutherford. He helped him build several inventions. While Rutherford was at the University of Cambridge, he had his own research team. His research team was diversified. He had both men and women. Rutherford was a believer in women's rights to an education.
Rutherford was one of the most cheerful person imaginable. He was just so nice.
Because of Thomson, Rutherford soon got offered a position at McGill University. With the university being so far away in Canada, Rutherford decided on getting married. He got married to Mary Georgina, and they both had a daughter, Eileen Mary. Both Thomson and Rutherford had discovered the electron together while fumbling around with X-rays and gases. However, Thomson took credit for the discovery of the electron. Rutherford heard about a story of a famous scientist and his work with uranium, so thus Rutherford started to play around with radioactivity. While playing around with radioactivity, he discovered alpha rays and beta rays, and soon he also understood the meaning of half-life. In 1901, Rutherford had partnered up with Nobel-winning chemist Frederick Soddy. With his help, they had figured out the inert gas known as thoron. Together, they had written a book known as The Theory of Atomic Disintegration. This book had contained all the experiments that they had done to prove that radioactivity had involved a spontaneous disintegration of atoms into other types of atoms. Now, the idea of atoms being able to break down was something that wasn't known. And so when people found out that atoms could be broken down, it was a revolutionary idea at the time. While Rutherford was figuring out the radiation of radium, he realized that alpha and beta rays don't match this type of radiation, and thus he had discovered gamma radiation.
When we talk about alpha, beta, and gamma rays, the first person that comes into mind is Rutherford. It was his brilliant gold foil experiment.
The gold foil experiment was Rutherford's most famous experiment that he had received a Nobel Prize for. It showed the nuclear nature of atoms by having alpha particles getting deflected by a gold foil. So the experiment had him shoot alpha particles at a thin sheet of gold foil. Surrounding the gold foil was a zinc sulfide sheet. Now, what zinc sulfide sheet does is it shows if an alpha particle has hit it by having little marks on that are noticeable when alpha particles are hit. So when these particles were hit at the gold foil, a few number of particles had actually deflected at more than a 90-degree angle, and however most of the particles passed right through the gold foil sheet. So this had allowed for the conclusion that the mass of an atom was concentrated at its center. Rutherford was also the first person to have successfully transmutated one element into another using the help of alpha radiation. In his experiment, he had converted nitrogen into oxygen. So he is one of the first real alchemists of his time. Also, Rutherford had theorized the idea of neutrons, which was later proven. During World War I, Rutherford was assigned a secret mission to have submarines stop being detected by sonars. So he was actually a spy at the time, and he was also knighted for this. Before the time of his death, Rutherford had suffered from a small hernia, and this small hernia had caused him to have great pain, and thus he opted to have surgery. While in surgery, they concluded he was paralyzed, and 4 days after he was paralyzed, he died. He was given a cremation alongside other famous scientists. Rutherford may as well be one of the best scientists that this world would have ever known. If it weren't for him, we would never have discovered alpha, beta, gamma rays. We wouldn't have the gold foil experiment. We wouldn't have nuclear physics. He was just an inspirational scientist, really, and we're gonna miss him.